All right, you ready? Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, joined by a brand new guest on the show, an absolute beauty, an absolute gem in the DFS community. I'm joined today by Daily Fantasy Talk Show. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hey man, it's good to get together for a video. We definitely been talking for a long time, wanting to get this going. So I'm glad we can get it going for week one NFL because that's going to be the most popular time of year. So we linked up at the right time.
Exactly. And you know what? I am so pumped for this season. Brand new way to look at it, right? We're back from the COVID season. There's brand new extra week added. So many things going on. And I think it's going to be a very, very profitable year for us. And today we are talking about how to target these games. How are we going to be playing, and a bit of strategy for you guys, because we are fortunate enough to have made a bit of money playing this in the past. And we're looking to share that with you guys as well. There's going to be a video just going over what we like to do before we enter our lineups, how we like to enter them, and how we like to target our ownership in order to make the most money possible. Now, I know you are a big golf guy, a big football guy, and you know your way around the DFS game. I mean, you're a great mind, and I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing a bit of your wisdom. Let's not waste any more time. I said we get right into it. With NFL, you have a big slate, usually around 15 games going on, right? So I want to just know firsthand, what's the first thing you look at when you're looking to build those lineups?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot coming at you at once. Like you said, 15 games. So it's going to be exciting. There's always a guy that pops off that we don't know about yet. So week one's a really fun time to get into DFS. But first thing I look at is over unders, right? Where Vegas thinks that these scoring is going to come from, and you want to target the games that are the highest because you want the most value for your buck, right? So going to an Arizona Tennessee Titans game over like a Miami New England game is going to be the difference between who wins money and who doesn't. Because if you're stacking the Miami New England game, I'm a little concerned for you because we get two quarterbacks who obviously aren't that proven yet. I'm a New England fan and like I want Mac Jones to do well, but like we don't know what that game generally is really low scoring between those teams. So you want to look at a game like Arizona Tennessee, who generally don't play each other a lot, or good offenses like Atlanta Philly. That should be a good game as well. You want to look for the bad defenses. You want to look for the games where a guy can score 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game. So that's going to separate you out in the Millie Maker because how many entries are in the Millie Maker right now? Like 300,000. Like if you want to win $1 million, you got to make sure you're taking the right strategy and targeting these games and stacking those games.
And yeah, man, like you said, it's so important to have those high scoring games, because what separates you and what gets you point while playing while playing NFL DFS is going to be getting points in the first place, getting that yardage, getting those touchdowns, right? So when you have two players the exact same skill level, the one who's going to score more points, who's going to have more opportunities to get you points, will be the one who scores well as well. So I do definitely look to target those high scoring games to figure out who we like to have, who we want to have, and who has the best opportunity to get a higher ceiling than the rest. When we talk about high ceiling, it's the guy with the most potential, right? So whereas two players could be exactly the same, when they're playing a team with a weaker defense or more opportunities to score, that's exactly who you want to have on your team, let alone the price tag that they bring. So it's nice to have a lot of teams who are going to score big, because with big points come big fantasy points as well. So lots of big opportunities for week one. But yeah, like you said, dynamic offenses are the key to win, and you want to separate yourself. And like you said, separate yourself from the GPP plays. When it comes to ownership and targeting those low owned plays, is there any special way you like to look at your value plays?
Yeah, NFL is interesting. Because I'm playing mostly golf. So when it comes to golf, you want to find a guy who's below that 20% or below that 15%. And NFL slate, there's so many more games, right? There's so many more ways to go. There's a lot of ways to get different, especially in week one, where you get a guy like Terrence Marshall Jr. at 3,000, like flat 3K. That guy, could pop off, and this is a week where you want to find those diamonds in the rough that is like, why are these guys 3K? They're like the wide receiver 2 or the wide receiver 3, and finding those plays that are going to be like 1 to 5% owned, is going to be the key to winning big. I've heard a lot of chatter about Cincinnati Bengals stack. Cincinnati, like, obviously from my purpose, like my fantasy team, I have Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, and T. Higgins. So like it would be great if they popped off, but at the same time, it's like Joe Burrow's coming off a torn ACL, and Joe Mixon's coming off an injury, and we really don't know which wide receiver is going to pop off yet because T. Higgins had a great year last year. Like I think he's the one that I'm going to take. But between Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, I mean, there's so many weapons on that team now that you don't really know which one's going to pop off yet. So all these people are going to be stacking Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Maybe Jamar Chase is going to be lower owned because he's a rookie. So you got to kind of find those pivots to where, okay, maybe the rookie is going to be less owned because, we know what Tyler Boyd brings to the table. He generally gets, 5 for 50 in any general week. So, maybe Jamar Chase gets 2 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, and he outplays Tyler Boyd. So you got to look for those differences and who you think is going to be lower owned. Make sure you're watching podcasts and shows like this all the way up to Sunday, so that way you know where that ownership is going to go.
Yeah, sometimes it's the best way you can do it is go against the grain. I know a lot of people are seeing someone like Marquez Callaway sitting at 3.4K, whereas someone like you mentioned in Marshall, who's sitting at 3K, just $400 cheaper, and will be less owned in this spot here. So I know there's a lot of different ways to target ownership, but you mentioned something that a lot of people might not know how to do properly. You mentioned stacking different teams, and NFL is one of the most important plays to stack things because you have 2 positions that correlate really well to each other. It's very, very important to sometimes stack the quarterback and the wide receiver at the same time because they're the ones who are passing to each other. The wide receiver can't get points without the quarterback getting points, right? So in NFL, it is very, very important to stack teams. Now, can you tell me a bit more about how you stack these teams?
Yeah, I mean, guys like, we just talked about the Bengals, right? So I'll go right back to them. Stacking a guy like Tyler Boyd with Joe Burrow is probably a good move because Tyler Boyd's more of a, he gets a lot of receptions. He's a great PPR player. A guy like Jamar Chase, he's a big play guy. So when you're making those stacks, you want to get the guys who are going to make the most catches, especially if you're trying to play safer. If you're going for the big $1 million prize, then you play a guy like Jamar Chase who could pop off for like 35 points. But Tyler Boyd's going to be that consistent, 10 to 15 point player that you're not going to have to worry about throughout the game, seeing that they have a 0 next to their scoreboard. Now that I'm saying that, Tyler Boyd's probably going to get 0 points. But you want the consistent guys that can catch 7 balls, 8 balls a game. Obviously, you don't know who that's going to be before the start of the game, but generally from years past, we know that those guys are the ones that will generally pop off more likely than not.
Yeah, man. And you said something else there too that I'm just going to segue right into is the difference between a safe lineup and a risky lineup. I mean, we have 2 different types of contest in our DFS sports. We're going to have those GPP lines and those cash lines as well. The important thing is when you play something like a cash line is to make sure you have those safe players, the one are going to accrue points for you no matter what, and you eliminate a lot of the risk from it. When you are targeting someone in a GPP option, you're looking more at someone who's risky, who can explode and get you those 40-point games, the ones who can go off, get you touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. And that's really what separates you from the rest. What is the biggest difference you like to find when you're building a cash lineup versus a GPP lineup?
Yeah, so cash lineups, you're going to want to get those safer plays, right? The guys that that are going to score the points. Because it doesn't matter whether you finish in first or you're the last one to get money, you're getting the same amount in a double up or a 50-50. But if you're in a GPP, obviously there's a big difference from first place to the last cash, right? So you want to make sure that you're playing these contests accordingly. So that way, if you're in a cash lineup, you're playing the guys like Tyler Boyd, like, the Julian Edelmans of the world, the guys that catches every game. And if they sprinkle in a touchdown, maybe they're, going to pop off even more. But in a GPP, where you're going for the $1 million, you want to play a guy that pops off like Tyreek Hill, like Jamar Chase. I'm going to go back to him again because, you want those big play guys in that lineup that can go out and score 40 points a game. If you play a guy, like Terrence Marshall Jr., probably not going to score 40 points, right? But his price point also is at the point where the value is there. So that's more going to be what you're going to have to weigh is he a safe play? Yes. All right, let me put him in my cash lineup. Is this guy a safe play? No. All right, he's probably more of a GPP option. So you want to make sure that you're balancing that in your game types and making sure you're playing them in the correct ones.
Yeah, I mean, when I play GPP lineups, when I play those big tournaments, I personally like to target cheaper quarterbacks so I'm able to pay up at different positions as well. You want to find those guys who are able to secure you enough value because the difference between the top quarterbacks is going to be less than the difference between the guys who pop off at wide receiver, something like that. You can have someone at wide receiver gets you 40 points, and the next closest guys could be around 30, 29, that lower range. Whereas someone who goes off a quarterback gets you a nice little 35-point day. There's other quarterbacks who can score just as well at different price ranges as well. So I like to target value at my quarterback and able to pay up for the rest. And in order to figure out who should be that value play for you, who should be your favorite targets, there are tons and tons of content out there as well, just like your channel, just like we post on our channel over here as well. There's so many different resources for us to use in order to build those optimal lineups. One last thing I want to touch on before we close out this video is when we're playing GPP lines, do you often like to play it more than one line, or how do you like to target it? Because when we play cash, we know we have those safe values. You only play one or two lineups because you know those are your safe lineups you're going to cash. Whereas in GPP lines, you have 150 entry max. You have a ton of different options for you to score big. How do you like to target your entries for those GPP tournaments?
It honestly, it all depends on your comfort level with the sport, right? You know, you could go out there and 20 max in the $1. That's generally what I do in golf. Is I'll put 20 lineups out in the GPP and try to go for the top prize. You know, in a cash line, obviously it's all single entry. So, you know, if you're not feeling as comfortable with your lineup, but you know, you have podcasts like this that you can listen to and get your information from and feel good about it, you know, I would play the cash lineup because the GPP lineup's a lot harder to cash in, right? So, you know, 50% are going to win in cash, or 40% thereabouts. And the GPP, it's about 25. So you really got to know your sport to play that GPP. So making those extra entries in that contest is going to be a lot more vital because, you know, you could have, you know, the top quarterback on the slate and then a bunch of duds at wide receiver, but then you have, you know, your 20th lineup in there could be the one that pops off. So, you know, being sure that you can extend to making sure you can get as many lineups in as you can, getting those different combinations in, that's going to be the key to winning big in GPP. Getting those combinations right and targeting those high games are going to be the biggest part of it.
Yeah, I mean, GPP is a definition of go big or go home. So you like to have those players who can explode. Like we mentioned earlier, target those games who are going to go big. And at the end of the day, find those value positions that are going to give you the most chance at winning that big prize. So I think we've covered everything I wanted to in this video. It was a pleasure having you on. If you guys want to check out any more of our videos, make sure to check out his YouTube channel and mine as well. I mean, we're both posting very similar content. I'll be excited to go head to head in you in our own fantasy league as well. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh yeah, man. Glad to be on. I know we're going to be having another show coming up in just a little bit. That's a sneak peek for y'all that are watching. So we're going to have some more stuff coming out. So it's going to be a great season for us.
Yep. Thank you very much, my friend. And yeah, let's make some money. Cheers.
That's right.